Greetings, BArcadians, and welcome to another edition of the BA Gaming News Show with me, Tabs, and my good friend Rich. Say hello, Rich.
Hello.
So we've got an absolutely epic show for you today. We're doing something a bit different. We've got three really juicy, potentially impactful topics going on in the games industry to talk about that have taken our interest. And then we're going to do a bit of a quick fire burst of rumours and gossip and other bits of interest at the end of the video, really. So let us know what you think about that. But before we get into things, Rich, should we talk about what we've been playing mostly this week?
Absolutely. And I'd just like to say we're doing the slight change to the BA News to try and compact the BA News a little bit to maybe more, more like, 18, 20 minutes. However, this week, with the pieces we need to talk about,
no chance.
That may not happen.
Yeah.
But this week, I've just been playing Ghost of Tsushima still.
Yeah.
Bits and bobs here and there, struggling to get as much time as I'd like on it. But yeah, I'm on to Act 3 now. It's probably a good chunk of the way through that. You doing what you've done on the game, which I'm sure you're about to allude to. I'm thinking I might want to do the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, what about you? What have you been playing?
Well, yeah, as you just mentioned there, so I did manage to platinum the game, excuse me, on hard mode. Nice. So pleased with that. It was, at one point I texted, didn't I, saying, I don't know if I'm going to do this, mate, it's just too much. But then, yeah, there's a couple of end game activities that I did use a guide online for, just to make it easier. You'll see, but there's essentially one thing you've got to do, because you have to achieve all the trophies. Yeah. That I just don't know how you do it naturally. Unless you played the game for hundreds of hours. Right, okay. But I'll help you with that when you get to it. Yeah. But yeah, apart from that, I'm just trying to decide on what is the next game I'm going to play. So I've been looking at games like Mass Effect, the trilogy on the laptop. Yeah. There's the indie showcase that came out from Nintendo this week, A Short Hike. That looks like a really interesting game. I hear it's 2 hours long, which is, a nice slice of gaming as well.
Won't fill your 12-hour gaming need.
Well, I've just done The Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, so...
Well, yeah, maybe it would be a nice relief to that.
Just chill into it.
Yeah.
But anyway, shall we get the show on the road before we run out of time?
I think we're going to have to. We're already running over in our intro, so go!
Right, so the first piece, epic in itself, excuse the pun. So yeah, Apple and Epic, a corporate war. So I'm sure most of us have seen a headline or two which involves this story. The problem is it's so complex, it's quite difficult to unpick. So we'll do our best to begin with to try and give you a shape of what's actually going on. So the gist of it is, Apple have removed Fortnite from their iOS store after the game offered a discount on its virtual currency purchases made outside of the app. So this was a move made by Epic, almost behind Apple's back, to give consumers a way to buy purchases outside of the store. Now they've passed that saving on to customers, which is great, pro-customer, but obviously Apple, who normally receive a cut of 30%, were very annoyed by that. Go on.
Well, not just annoyed, I think it's likely that breach protocol. So there'll be protocol that's required for them to be on the store, and it's likely that breaches it. So
yeah, I suppose a contract with their, their customers on the store. So and it applies to everybody, not just Epic.
Absolutely.
So anyway, seemingly Epic were prepared for this. Apple essentially have said that unless they revert to type, they're going to actually remove Fortnite. Also use of the Unreal Engine from the iOS store entirely. And they've got up until the 28th of August to do this. Google followed suit as well, who take the same platform fee of 30% for all purchases via their store. But Epic, in response, seemingly predicted this. They released their own propaganda video, is the best way of putting it, which is themed on a piece of literature by George Orwell, 1984. Which actually was a pastiche on Apple's, an old Apple advert. Now, essentially, we won't dive into too much detail there. No,
I've not seen that.
It's interesting. I mean, but we'll come back to that because I don't think it's good what Epic have decided to do there. Essentially, they've then launched, though, Epic a lawsuit, or I think a series of suits against Apple. And the gist of it is they're trying to say that Apple and potentially Google are being monopolistic with the market.
Well,
so they're saying that they're just not being fair to not only Epic, who want to, you know, negotiate down this 30% transaction fee, but also to all the other developers out there who have to fall in line with that. Now, is that okay so far, Rich? Do you want to step in with anything, or is that enough of an outline?
I think you've outlined the story beautifully.
So now, just to give us some context on this, because it is interesting, there's actually been some antitrust investigations going on. I know in the EU, and I also think in the US. Now, these are essentially investigating whether Apple and Google are being fair, you know, operating within the parameters set by competition rules, you know, that governments overlook essentially. Now, on March the 11th, 2019, apparently a streaming, well, Spotify essentially complained about Apple Music. And then on March the 5th, 2020, an ebook and audio book distributor, which I presume is Amazon, made a complaint as well against Apple. So this launched this European Commission into this antitrust investigation, which is still ongoing. Of course, as we've reported on in recent weeks, another big event happened, Project xCloud by Microsoft. As we know, they made quite a vocal statement because iOS weren't supporting their beta test of Game Pass and Project xCloud for various reasons. Again, it didn't fit with their, you know, their contract, their platform agreements. And Microsoft came out to say that they didn't think it was fair or, you know, pro-consumer because they were the only platform banning them from it.
Absolutely.
So we start to get a picture now that, you know, that there's a lot of pressure on Google, on Apple specifically, about their, you know, their monopolistic hold on the markets. And clearly this was timed by Epic to try and add to that weight against them, to try and, you know, provoke real change. And by the way, it was recently announced that Apple are now worth $2 trillion as a company. So that just goes to show their, you know, their size, their scale. So yeah, I mean, we'll throw out to us now, Rich. I suppose my main argument is, you know, it's very complex, difficult to say. I think Epic, what they're doing, it's a just cause. You know, they're trying to, the hold that Apple has on the market and Google, it's affecting a number of different people and smaller developers as well. So it would be good for the markets if they're, you know, brought back into line a little bit. Some of that profit that they're skimming is unlocked to trickle down to the rest of the community, the industry. The problem is the way they've gone about it with this propaganda video, which is essentially weaponizing, well, a fan base, which, as we know with Fortnite, skews very much towards a younger generation, should we say?
Yeah, yeah.
That doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't feel right.
Absolutely agree. I have to say, I do think Epic have gone out on a bit of a limb here, because at the end of the day, they could just agree with the status quo, go, it's not ideal, but we'll keep doing what we're doing because it's making us money. So I sort of applaud them in some respects for going, you know what, this is needed because the industry is skewed in a way that isn't right, you know, and it won't just be affecting them. You know, little studios that want to produce little games where their margins are really small, you know, they're going to be having to then give the, I think, 30% we spoke about to them. So it is tough. That's the rules have set. There doesn't seem to be any argument with the rule. The rule is the rule. So
I think you're absolutely right, because essentially some people are saying, well, hang on, Epic, you're a multi-billion-dollar company. Don't try and pretend you're freedom fighters here. You know, you're set, you'd become Apple in a heartbeat if you could, and monopolise the market if you were in that position. But I think you are right. I think there is some sort of sentiment from Epic that, you know, the way things are set are far-reaching for everybody. And to put essentially the revenue from Fortnite on the line, which has got to be considerable from the iOS store, that takes some balls essentially. So they're obviously, you know, there's something going on here. It's a complex mixture of things, but I don't think it's just for their own commercial interests.
I do find it interesting that they've taken the decision, even though it is unrelated to this, to ban the Unreal Engine from the store as well. I find that...
Well, it is actually related. That's Apple have gone, they've retaliated in a way which is, you know, taking a sledgehammer to crack the nut. because they're actually affecting other people with that, aren't they? What? If they ban the Unreal Engine, it means all of the smaller developers using that tool can't anymore.
That's what I'm saying, it's unrelated to Fortnite. The Unreal Engine is an asset on its own, and it's unrelated to Fortnite, but they have felt so
because Epic own it.
They've gone, you know what? We'll see your little, we'll ban Fortnite and we'll raise the game now. But that's now affecting other people. Smaller studios can use the Unreal Engine to make games, you know, and that's a way they can keep their profit margins down by using a game engine that's already been created, and now they can't.
It's like the teacher in class, isn't it, with the unruly student, and he's saying, well, I'll tell you what, because you've been naughty, the whole class can stay for detention.
Exactly. So, and the thing is, I do think this is required. It sounds like change is needed, but this is going to affect smaller studios, and obviously if that's going to mean potentially we're going to lose some smaller people, you know, I'm talking about people who are making apps for the App Store, you know, for the iOS store. We're not talking about game developers necessarily, or big game developers we would think about them. But yeah, I think it can only be a bad thing short term, but potentially I think this has got a long term, much better goal in sight. Yeah,
this is it. Yeah, I mean, hopefully the pressure will bring about real change. The argument being, though, could they have done this behind the scenes? Could they have done this a bit more professionally? Even raise petitions amongst the industry rather than try and weaponise the gaming public fan base in a way which you could challenge as being quite irresponsible.
And as I seem to go along all of the time, the ultimate person or people who are losing out in this scenario is gamers. They now can't play their game.
Yeah.
So it seems to all these negative stories, they always come back to gamers suffering in some way, which is a real shame.
This is it. So yeah, complicated one, BArcadians. Let us know your thoughts. There's so many strands to this one, but just because of how unprecedented it is, we thought it was a really interesting one to share. And I think it's worth diving into, because if you just read a headline, you don't get the scoop on it. So let us know what you think. But Rich, let me get my breath back. Take us away on the next.
So, last week we were pondering what to use or what to put in the news, and I mentioned to Tabs about a story that was doing the rounds that had been taken upon by loads of publications, lots of people we follow on YouTube, actually lots of news publications. And this was Dusk Golem, aka Aesthetic Gamer, basically using or put out a statement that was then grabbed and ran with by so many people within the industry. And this was about fake 4K, and that's what his actual words in his statement were. And unfortunately, from that, he is left to a loss of credibility for this leaker. Let me fill you in. So on the 8th of August, Dusk Golem made the surprise claim that the current build of Resident Evil Village is struggling to run 1080p 60 frames on the PS5, contrasting with
basically better performance on the Xbox Series X.
Yes, basically. Yeah. And we thought, okay, that's fair enough. He seems to leak Resident Evil things all of the time and seems to have some weight with that. So it stands to reason that you would think, okay, that's probably, you know, he's a trustworthy...
There's got to be some truth to that somewhere, you would say.
Absolutely. But he also went on to say, and this was following by reports by Jeff Grubb, that some of the third-party developers are having trouble dealing with the variable clock frequency that we know is on the PlayStation 5 GPU.
AKA Smart Shift.
Dusk Golem went on to say that a number of titles might end up at fake 4K, his words, on Sony's consoles. Now, unsurprisingly, the term fake 4K, everyone grabbed that and ran with it. Loads of people ran these stories. He is a credible sort of leaker of information, mainly to do with Resident Evil. So people were all over it. Now, I said to Tabs, I didn't think we should run this story because I couldn't find enough information on it. And I didn't understand a lot of the things that were being said on it, because there seemed to be lots of information, all a bit out there, really. Now, unsurprisingly, his tweet triggered an avalanche of toxic comments across Twitter, Reddit, NeoJaf and other platforms, with some posing allegations that Dusk Golem is a Microsoft slave. I mean, that's harsh. Others claiming that he made up this thing that he said,
Which he didn't help himself out on, did he?
No.
As you'll go on to tell us.
And he was basically doing it to garner attention, and others were adopting direct, more personal insults, which again we don't condone.
Terrible.
But following this controversy, Reset Era stripped Dust Golem of his status as a forum moderator, and this is where this story starts to unravel. Now, it's important to keep in mind here that Dust Golem is a single person.
He's just a bloke.
Yeah, and
I think a bloke anyway.
And he always says that anything that he says as a leak is always second-hand information. He spoke to somebody else who's told him. So, you know, when he's saying, well, I don't know too much about this, then, you know, his statement of fake 4K, you would think he's just repeating what somebody else has said. Now, it turns out that this is not the case at all. What actually happened was, after there was a load of backlash and people were saying this is not right, I'm not sure about this, and I saw a developer actually direct tweeted back to him with this.
Called him out, didn't he,
full on called him out and said, oh, I don't know about that, and actually was quite in like an unconventional way, like tore him a new one.
Yeah, he was harsh.
Yeah, but in a way without, if you just read it.
He kind of says, do you regularly, you know, just come out with statements on stuff that you have no idea about?
Yeah, because
the gist of it was
as people were asking him about, oh, well, what do you mean by that? He said, oh, I don't really know, I'm not sure. And, you know, he obviously hadn't got that much information about this. Well, it turns out he made pretty much the whole thing up, is what we're saying.
Yeah, well, he's reported something he's heard, hearsay, very, very badly, because he doesn't know the technical background behind it. And then he came in response to basically say, this has really not done him any favours. Part of it was because he thought the console war was a bit one-sided and Xbox weren't getting much of a shout in it. So he thought he had some sort of personal motivation to say this. Which, I mean, I'll just go into my point of view, Rich. For me, I think there's probably some genuine news here behind it all, insofar as developers are probably struggling somewhat to get their heads around this smart shift technology, which is essentially about channeling the power between the GPU and the CPU of the PlayStation 5. Now, I think that's relatively new for the industry. So of course, developers are going to struggle to figure something out they've never really had to think about before. And I think that's probably the background that's going on here. But then obviously, Dust Golem, aka Aesthetic Gamer, I would say suicidally, has just stepped out into the crossfire of a rabid console war at this stage.
It's just been gunned down.
And he has been brutally gunned down by the crossfire in between that. And then obviously in the worst PR move you could ever say, he's come out and fueled that fire by saying he has some personal motivations to come out with this news because he feels it's a bit of a one-sided, console war so far. So, if he was a company, you would be firing your PR firm. He's committed some sort of credibility suicide. But you've got to remember, and this is the side of it that Rich touched upon, he is one person, and he's never pretended to be anything else. He's a chap on Twitter who clearly knows some people in the industry and has leaked credible rumours, gossip about Resident Evil specifically. And, he even did, to an extent, try and give some context on this fake 4K stuff. The problem is, he stepped into this console war toxic cesspit on social media, and then people have just tore him a new one. So I kind of feel a little bit sorry for him, but of course he's made some terrible decisions. He should never have got involved in it. And he should have made sure, as we said before we started filming, Rich, that he was bulletproof.
Absolutely.
So if he was going to be questioned about it, he could say, this is exactly what I mean.
Yeah. And
this is why technically it's bared out.
The only thing I'll say, and I'm just going to backtrack a little bit on what Tabs has just said, as I understand it, this whole dynamic clock thing is absolutely groundbreaking. It's not been done before in terms of the way it's being done on the PlayStation 5. So I understand that it's new and people are adjusting to it. However, what we're saying about the fact people are struggling to develop for it doesn't ring true with other things that we've heard, such as the PlayStation 5 is really easy to develop for.
Yeah.
So what we're maybe saying is the PlayStation is easy to develop for, it's just difficult to optimize for.
Yeah, I think that's probably
because
broadly true.
The things don't stack up for me. How can it be easy to develop for, but then people are struggling to develop for? Doesn't make any sense to me.
It's just this one aspect of, you know, where do you put in power in the GPU, CPU? I think it's just new for developers. It's that one aspect that's proven a bit tricky. Probably means, as you said, they can't quite as easily get to those optimization levels as normal, and that's it. So yeah, to come out and say, we think we're going to see a lot of fake 4K, it's a real bit leap of faith, isn't it, to
Absolutely.
make? So anyway.
And then obviously he's ruined his credibility now, so everything he ever says now, even if he can say on Heart's Heart, I know this is gospel, I've literally seen it with my own eyes, he's going to get questioned all over the place with it. So he's ruined his sort of USP as an informer on Twitter.
I certainly think there'll be a massive PlayStation fanboys waiting in the wings on his next big rumour to try and tear him a new one. So yeah, I think sometimes you've got to learn the hard way, haven't you, in this industry, and maybe our day will come as well, Rich.
And speaking of learning the hard way in this industry, take us on to the next story.
Love the segue, fantastic. That wins Segue of the Day award. So anyway, yeah, E3. So the Entertainment Software Association Video Games Lobby Group that also organises E3 was basically forced to take down a tweet that they put out the other day on their official Twitter account. The tweet in question promoted a list first published by site Parade titled 25 online games that women enjoy. So initially it doesn't sound that bad, but just wait until you really start to drill down into it. So essentially this particular article reinforces damaging stereotypes about women gamers, essentially. So in this list of 25 games, there's a mixture of card, cooking games, farming, life simulations, mobile games, even one about Kim Kardashian, which was just, you know, for them to come out and do this, a massive industry, property, institution, it was so out of touch.
Oh yeah.
It's unbelievable. And of course this garnered a huge response from journalist influencers, basically saying, you know, this is dreadful, what are you playing at? I mean, a couple of little other tidbits to mention. One of the lines in the article, I think it was the opening kind of gambit, girls love gaming just as much as men. I mean, girls.
I know, what world are we living in all of a sudden?
Why would you say that? Yeah, I mean, anyway. And then later on, there was a mention, I think it started, they were talking about Bejeweled Classic, that game, I think it is. And they started with, diamonds are a girl's best friend. Am I right, ladies?
I mean...
Oh, it sounds like, well, I actually put on Twitter to Lucy O'Brien, Rich, that it sounded to me like a pastiche line from a BioShock game or an advert from Fallout.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of retro futurism, because it was that like out of date and that off the you know, the tone of where we are in this modern age.
You know, to put this into context, yeah, my missus plays games and she's really looking forward to Tony Hawk's remake. She plays Mario, she plays Zelda. What else she's been playing? Donkey Kong. So like none of those games feature in that list, and I wouldn't even say the missus was a hardcore gamer. Yeah. So what a load of nonsense the story is.
What they'd have been better off doing is putting out an article which explores representation in video games changing over time, and also looking futurospectively as to the progress we still need to make with that. And you know, I just wanted to talk a bit more about, you know, it all taps into the culture that we're seeing across video games, and hopefully that changing for the better. We've seen, of course, Rich, haven't we, a lot of kind of toxic boys club mentality in big developers. So of course, more recently, Ubisoft. We saw, you know, literally Serge Haskaway we covered in recent weeks. Somebody who was arbitrarily making decisions, projecting their own personal opinions, which was, you know, almost keeping female representation out of some of their, you know, their body of games. We've also seen an article this week from Rocksteady.
Yeah.
You know, the female employees are essentially wrote a couple of years ago, I think, an open letter to again challenge, you know, boys club mentalities, harassment, abuse, you know, at their company culture. And then, you know, I pulled some other details from here. 2018 investigation California developer Riot Games, where 5 former employees sued the company over workplace harassment and discrimination. What else have we got? There's some more going on. A wave of stories on Twitter about people in the games industry generally being plied with drinks and pressured into sex at industry parties, belittled and gaslit at work by male bosses, stalked, groomed, harassed. I mean, it's awful, really. So essentially, you know, it's all part of this story, which is really positive that these things are getting reported on.
Absolutely.
And obviously we've seen with Ubisoft, they promise a great deal of reform. They've got independent people in to try and change it. And this is all going to trickle down in the industry. You know, the first part of it is actually recognising the problem, isn't it? Before you can bring in real change. And obviously giving a voice to women without, you know, feeling like they're going to lose their jobs. You know, they're in fear of retaliation for doing so. So yeah, another big impactful thing in the industry, and one hopefully we're starting to change. The problem is, the last 25 years or so, initially games were very male dominant. And even though we see massive changes in the audience, I think I saw a stat, Rich, 3 billion people in the world are gamers now.
Nice.
Of a population of what, is it about 7 billion?
Yeah, 7 odd.
I mean, that's nearly half of the world's population. And obviously there's so much diversity in the gaming audience these days. But that doesn't mean that the development companies behind games will have changed quite so quickly, because obviously business works a lot differently, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on this, Rich? Save me from blabbing any more about it.
Well, my first thing is, none of those games, I would say, if you were you're following the E3 Twitter account, that means you are a hardcore gamer. Or you are at least extremely interested in gaming. That doesn't mean, and no disrespect to the people that do this, you're not sat at home playing Sudoku on a tablet.
Yeah.
You're not, those people are not following E3, I wouldn't have thought. So why would you think of a list of female gamers following your Twitter would be interested in those kind of games? Yeah,
it was condescending to say the least.
But it just seems like such a misstep in terms of like knowing your audience. Those people who are following that Twitter account will be into all kinds of games. They'll be into the same games me and you are into. There'll be no difference in that respect.
And employ people who represent hardcore gamers of all gender types, creeds, you know, what have you. And then you can ask those people, is this a good article to post, do you think, on our social media account? No, don't do it.
The thing that, and this is, I mean, we spoke about Xbox a lot recently, but it goes back to them dropping that trailer that looked rough as. You think, who signed that off? What's the same on this? Who signed this off?
Where are the internal filters, the triage that prevents these disasters?
Don't put that out there, that's just stupid.
I know, it does baffle you in some ways, these huge companies. But yeah, let us know again, Barcadians, your thoughts on that. You know, obviously, we'd like to frame it, things are moving forwards, we are progressing, there's still a lot of work clearly to do.
Absolutely.
But we'd love to hear from you. So Rich, what have we got next? We're going to wrap up with the best of the rest, aren't we?
Yeah, which I'm calling everything else.
Nice.
Yeah, so now this is supposed to be, so we've done our like in-depth news pieces. That's taken about 15-20 minutes, or in this case, 28. And then this is like a quick wrap round of everything else we're interested in this week that have caught our eye. So Tabs, take us away with the first line.
Yeah, literally shooting from the hip. Ghost of Tsushima Legends announced free multiplayer mode. We're dead chuffed about it. We think it's great. And it's free.
And it looks amazing. And they have confirmed absolutely no microtransactions whatsoever.
Get in. Amazing.
So PS5 Deathloop looks to be delayed until at least 2021.
Shame.
Which is a shame.
Cool.
It means it's going to miss the launch date, but if it needs more time in the oven.
We heard that it uses haptic feedback. If your gun locks up, the triggers actually lock.
Oh, that's really interesting. Love that.
Anyway, moving us on. Jeff Grubb and other sources seem to be suggesting that we'll see a Nintendo Direct before the month's out, or early September. So Nintendo fans, get excited.
I think there's that's definitely possible, because we are waiting with bated breath for something from Nintendo, so I think that could happen. Now this is an interesting one. Breath of the Wild 2 Collector's Edition listing pops up on a French retailer, which you think, okay, that might happen, but this is also the French retailer that leaked Witcher 3. So this is very, very interesting.
Incredible.
And I wonder whether those two stories, are they linked together? Direct and Breath of the Wild 2 Collector's Edition?
Maybe.
Who knows?
Staying on the Zelda theme, Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, a listing was found on Amazon UK. So with the 35th anniversary coming up next year, are we going to see a raft of Zelda properties? Let's hope so, because I love Zelda.
Indeed, in the I think this was in the indie dev thing.
Was.
Yes, Untitled Goose Game is now getting a co-op mode, which looks interesting.
Yes,
Could be
indeed.
fun to play.
Microsoft Flight Simulator, surprise hit, currently sitting at a 93 on Metacritic. I'm tempted to buy it.
I don't know on this one. I'm so on the fence on this one, I don't know. But awesome that it's got reviewed extremely well. Prince of Persia remake leaked by retailer.
Yes, indeed.
And did I see this possibly today? This could be coming to the Switch.
Yeah, there was an advert, a notification to say it was Switch. I think it was some Guatemalan retailer, so I don't know how much to put into it, but exciting. Love Prince of Persia. Would love to see it. Okay, we'll finish on this, Rich, you can say it, but first, last but not least, Demon Souls might be ready for launch on PlayStation 5. But Rich, take us away with the last piece. This exciting.
That wasn't on the script sheet, so I don't know what's going on. So whatever you're doing when this video finishes, or whenever you're watching this, cancel it. Go straight to Black Myth Wukong 13-minute gameplay video. Watch it. Looks incredible. Looks a little bit like the Unreal Engine 5 tech demo in terms of the graphics. Looks amazing. Graphics look amazing.
Stunning. God of War meets, what did we say? God of War meets Dark Souls.
That's it.
With Chinese mythology, with a little bit of Killik in there from Soul Calibur.
And looks like crazy game mechanics all over the place that you just want to delve right into.
Next gen, graphics beautiful. Digital Foundry, please make a video soon so we can dive into it. And BArcadians, that's it.
We're done, we made it.
Good grief. It was an epic this week. Thank you very much for watching. Please like the video to support what we do. Share it with your friends. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring that bell for notifications. And without further banging on, that's another one for the archives.
Stamped and completed.